Hi everyone, another sample reading with the Orbifold Tarot and a 3-card reading method that I wanted to share with you. This particular method is based on a concept from Jungian psychology. That's a relatively basic concept that stretches through from Jung and all of his successors. So if you're familiar with his work or done process work or counseling work, you've probably heard of it. I was inspired or reminded of that concept by my friend Katrina Wynn, who is a tarot counselor, and she combines her experience as a counselor with her tarot work for amazing results. I'll put a link down to her information below if you're interested in her work. So the concept itself is the concept of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. It could actually be done with 2 cards instead of 3, and you'll see why in a few minutes. But because it's three core concepts, I was playing around with using 3 cards, and it seemed to work fairly well for me. So the concept of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, in a nutshell, is thesis is the main issue, the main concept. It can represent, in a tarot reading, it can represent the querent's question to begin with, or if the querent doesn't even have a question, it can represent the issue that's most prevalent for them, the thing that's most at the surface of their minds, the thing that they're most aware of, the thing that even if they're not asking about in person, it's the thing that they are internally asking about, and is the main issue. It can also be their wish or their desire, the thing that they want. So it's not necessarily an issue or a problem. It can also be their dream, their wish, their desire, what they hope to get out of the process of the reading or the counseling session. In this case, the reading, in more traditional psychology and counseling. The antithesis is the thing that's working against the querent's wish or main issue. And that could be something that they're aware of, that is either that they're aware of but seems totally unrelated. So, for instance, maybe if the person is having a communication problem with a friend, but then at the same time they're also having financial difficulties, maybe they don't see the connection between the two, but of course, nothing we do in our lives, no aspect of our lives is totally disconnected from any other aspect. They're all interrelated, and every aspect of our life affects every other aspect. And often we attempt to compartmentalize. Often we've been taught to compartmentalize and say, well, work is work, and home is home, and family is family, and they're all separate parts of ourselves. When really, none of those parts are separate, and how we deal with one thing is often going to play out in how we deal with another thing, and what's going on in one aspect is certainly going to affect what's going on in another aspect. So the antithesis is the thing that is seemingly unrelated, but is certainly related directly to the issue. And it could be even something that the querent is totally unaware of, or that they're aware of that seems unrelated, or it could be something that they are both aware of and aware that it's related, but it seems to be working against the intended goal, the thesis, or contributing, working against the solution to their initial problem. And so then what happens between thesis and antithesis in working with them and looking at them and starting to draw the connection between the two and starting to see how is the thesis related to the antithesis, from that process results the synthesis, or the resolution, the coming together of the two things, the solution to the problem, or at least a clue to the solution to the problem. It doesn't necessarily mean everything is solved, but it's the key toward solving the problem. So that's the synthesis. So that's why, like I said, it can be done actually with 2 cards. Sometimes you only need 2 cards. You need one for the thesis and one for the antithesis, and then you start to bridge the 2 through the process, and the synthesis just kind of comes out, and it doesn't need to be represented by any particular card. But in this case, I wanted to use a 3rd card just to see how it worked out, because it might give a clue as to how the 2 are related, or it might help steer the synthesis even further into an even more helpful direction. So in this case, we have the 9 of water as the thesis. So 9 of water is about independence, independent fulfillment. Water is usually shorthanded to emotions, but of course it also relates to many other things like the subconscious, sensations, memories, nurturing, sometimes health, particularly in the way that we absorb and absorb nutrients and nourish ourselves, and take care of ourselves. So there's an element of love and nurturing to water. And so the 9 of water combines those concepts of independence and kind of solitary fulfillment, solitary completion, with emotions and nurturing and sensations and memories. So this thesis represents a person who is probably wanting a little bit more alone time, a little bit more solitary time to rejuvenate and recuperate, maybe self-reflect, all of that kind of thing. So it's a person who enjoys their alone time and kind of seeks retreat. And so in the thesis position, it could indicate that that's what the person is seeking, what the person desires. Could also represent what the person is already doing, or a bit of both, right? Because if the person's already got that and they're enjoying it, then of course they're going to want to seek more of that. But of course, in the same way that no aspect of our lives doesn't affect any other aspect of our lives, we also can't really live in total isolation, at least not if we live in a city in culture. You know, if you do live out on a cave, then you're probably not watching YouTube, and so it's kind of irrelevant. But if you interact with people, whether it's during the work life or during social life, or because or family stuff, even if it's a situation where you'd like to be kind of left alone, there are obligations, family obligations, work obligations, social obligations, and some people find those more enjoyable than others, and depending on the time and the situation. So that's all just to say that kind of emotional independence, that solitude, and that desire for solo fulfillment can actually get in the way of other things, and it can actually, even though that's the desire, it can actually start to be detracted from and feel less fulfilling when there's too much of it, because there isn't the interaction to support the interior fulfillment. So then that kind of carries us on to the 2 of fire. Fire is often about conflict because it's the most volatile of the elements. Of course, air can also be about conflict. It tends to be the conflict suit. With swords, it tends to be about conflict. But fire is also often about conflict because it's about efforts and the things that we do to push things forward. And our efforts may not always be in accordance with other people's efforts. And so then conflict can arise from that. And sometimes our efforts are seemingly in our best interests, but those can also cause conflict. So even though as much as we can cause problems for ourselves in the way we think, sometimes more harm is caused or more difficulty is caused by the things that we do as a result of our thinking. So thinking would be air, doing would be fire. So it's efforts. And 2 is about duality. Sometimes it's interior duality, sometimes it's exterior. The thing I thought of when I first turned this card over, after the solitary fulfillment card, I thought of collaboration. So this is maybe a person who's been collaborating with someone, or who has been given an opportunity for collaboration and is resisting that collaboration because they want individuality and solitary fulfillment. They want to do it on their own. But the efforts may be better off with a collaboration. So they may need help in their efforts, and they may be resisting that. So it can also be, again, 2 very different things. It could be that the person wants solitary home life, and then there's this opportunity for collaboration in their work life, and it seems like the 2 are oppositional or unrelated, but perhaps engaging in this collaboration and sharing efforts with someone may actually get work done better or faster, or give them more exposure, or help them along in some way that going it alone wouldn't do. And so then in turn, because the efforts are shared between 2 people, that could actually give the person a little bit more of that solitary time for reflection and self-nurturing. So it starts to, the 2 are very related. And so this is a theoretical situation. A real-life situation might seem a little bit more pulled apart, a little bit more separate between the thesis and the antithesis. But you can see how the 2 opposing factors are not really opposing so much. They have the potential to oppose each other and to resist against each other, but then they also have the potential to work together and come to a good solution. So that's where we come to the synthesis card. So synthesis is that combination and the possible solution. In this case, we have 4 of air. 4 is being about comfort, security, stability, to some degree in that comfort and stability, to some degree rest or ease. And in air, in the mental realm, that means a rest for the mind, or some ease in the mind, a little bit more like for the mind. So there's a little bit more space for the mind to breathe and to rest and to settle, so it's not so agitated. And so that's probably what the person is looking for from this solitary emotional fulfillment, this individual fulfillment and alone time. But they're maybe not necessarily getting it. And so through that alone time, they're looking for this mental rest, this mental ease. But if they're not getting it, then maybe the collaboration and being more involved with the collaboration and putting forth their efforts in that collaboration might lead more effectively to that mental ease, that mental, a little bit more space, a little bit more stability for the mind, that then in turn will come around and help them with their solitude. And maybe with that mental ease, that feeling of mental space, maybe they'll have a little bit less desire or a little bit less requirement for self-nurturing, self-time, self-reflection. They'll still get that, but they may desire it less. They may feel less of a need for it because the other aspects are a little bit more softened, a little bit more in place. So that's that. That's thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Really useful method for looking at a situation, even looking at a situation where you know something's wrong, but you're not really sure what, and really delving deeper and deeper into what's going on. Can also be really useful for self-reading. I'm going to do another video on self-reading in a moment, but often the challenge with self-reading is that we can't see everything. So this pairing, this opposing forces of thesis and antithesis can help kind of force us into seeing what we're not seeing. So that can be really helpful. Hope you enjoy, and I'll be back again soon.